Harry Hart, in a perfect suit under a long guitar solo, walks through the crowd and puts down 40 people in a way that makes you want to hit pause and watch it again. And almost everyone who's seen it thinks the same thing. There he is, the real Harry, the ice-cold gentleman who turned killing into art, who makes violence beautiful just by being who he is. And that's exactly where the picture gets misleading. Because in the very scene where Harry looks his coolest, he has absolutely no control over himself. It's not his choice. Honestly, it's barely even him. I'll explain. But first, let's just be clear about the phrase itself. Harry Hart made violence look beautiful. That's not a quote from the film. Nobody says that in the movie. It's how viewers and critics described Matthew Vaughn's style. And you know what's funny? Half the critics agreed, and the other half criticized the film for the exact same thing. One major outlet put the scene in the headline as one of the most beautiful depictions of violence in cinema history. And a critic from the New York Times wrote the opposite, that Vaughn was wasting violence. So this isn't even a settled fact. It's an argument. When you start breaking down how the whole thing is actually built not Harry, but the film around him, you see that the beauty here was assembled piece by piece. The suit, the camera, the music, the editing, and Harry himself, who might be suffering more in these scenes than he's enjoying them. Hey everyone, this is Mr. Character. Let's break down what actually makes Harry Hart's violence so beautiful in Kingsman. Because it's not what you think on the first watch. The pub. The fight where Harry locks the door and says, "Manners maketh man." Most people just call it a cool fight scene. I think it's not a fight at all. It's a lesson. Look at how it's actually built step by step. Harry is sitting with young Eggsy, talking about his father. 6 thugs from his stepdad's gang walk in and start trouble. And Harry stands up. He walks toward the exit, but instead of leaving, he slides both bolts and turns the lock. He's not walking out. He's locking them in. With him. As the saying goes, none of you understand. I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. And then comes the part most people gloss over. Harry doesn't just start swinging. He announces what's about to happen first. Manners maketh man. You know what that means? Then allow me to demonstrate. And only after that does he hook a pint glass off the bar with his umbrella and send it into the leader's head. Drops him in one move. Then he takes out the other 5 with his fists, his umbrella, and their own momentum. Someone noticed his technique is based on an old Victorian martial art using a walking cane. And that's actually the only fighting style Harry uses that's confirmed everything else people attribute to him, like boxing or Krav Maga. That's fan theory from Reddit. And here's the detail almost everyone misses. In the pub, Harry doesn't kill a single person. Not one. All 6 are just knocked out. The bartender reaching for the phone gets a dart full of amnesia from Harry's watch, by the way, not the umbrella. Like a lot of people misremember. Then, Harry calmly walks back to the bar, finishes his drink, and leaves. That's the whole lesson. And the thing that matters isn't the fight itself, it's the frame around it. Announced it, delivered it, went back to finish his drink. This isn't a bar brawl, it's a duel with rules. The suit is literally called the modern gentleman's armor in the film. And notice in the pub, the suit barely gets dirty. Remember that because things are about to get a lot messier. Quick side note, one thing almost everyone hears wrong. A lot of people swear some great song is playing during the pub fight. There isn't. No licensed track plays there. What you hear is original orchestral score written for the film. The song everyone remembers plays right at the start in the prologue. The fight itself runs under a clean orchestra that quietly starts when Harry locks the door and builds with every hit. The beauty isn't coming from a song. It's coming from rhythm. Every hit like a period at the end of a sentence. And that smoothly takes us to the main event. The church. The scene that this whole conversation exists for. Because there's a theory, and it goes like this. Harry isn't beautiful in the church scene because he's some great killing machine. He's beautiful because in that moment he stops being himself. Harry arrives at this church in Kentucky. Inside is a crowd of fanatics, racists, homophobes, a classic hate cult, pretty clearly based on a real American church. Harry listens to their sermon and is visibly disgusted. He even tries to quietly leave. The woman next to him starts getting in his face, and Harry delivers one of the best dry lines in the film, something like, "I'm a Catholic whore, and I wish you a very pleasant afternoon, ma'am." And that's it. At that point, he's still completely himself. He's not planning to touch anyone. Then something happens that changes how you see the whole scene. Outside in a van sits the villain Valentine. He presses a button. A signal goes out through the free SIM cards he handed out to people. The signal fires up the aggression centers in people's brains and shuts down all their restraint. Everyone in the room at once. Harry gets hit by it too. Harry is not a calm observer who decides, all right, time to kill. Harry gets swept up in the same signal as the congregation. All 40 people he ends up killing are, in that same moment, trying to kill each other. They're victims too. Harry isn't cutting down unarmed civilians. He's fighting off a crowd that's coming at him with axes and knives. And the scene is genuinely beautiful in a disturbing way. Harry uses everything: the pistol, the umbrella, his electroshock ring, a grenade lighter, even the Bible as a blunt weapon. Under the guitar solo of Freebird, it looks like one continuous dance of death. 40 kills in just over 3 minutes, someone actually counted. And here's that suit detail I asked you to remember. In the pub, Harry's suit stayed clean. Here, by the end of the scene, it's soaked in blood. One sleeve is torn, same armor suit. Now it's literally falling apart on him. On the outside, he still looks like a gentleman. On the inside, not anymore. And there's one more thing people usually miss. Vaughn deliberately cuts to people outside, to Valentine, to his assistant, to Eggsy and Merlin. And they're all horrified by what they're seeing. Even Valentine, who set this whole thing up, actually gets sick at the sight of blood and looks away. Which means nobody in the frame is enjoying the beauty, except us, the audience. And there you are, watching and taking it in. And then the signal cuts off. But remember what came right after. Harry looks around the hall full of bodies he just made. And on his face, it's not pride. It's horror. He walks out covered in blood and tells Valentine, literally, "What did you do to me? I had no control. I killed all those people." And then he adds 3 words that flip everything. "I wanted to." The signal didn't just make Harry kill, it made him want to. That's the real cruelty of the villain's invention. Can you think of another action hero who, after a great massacre scene, looked like that? Not like a winner. Like someone whose own mind was violated from the inside. The film seduces you with the beauty of it and then shoves your face in the fact that there isn't much to admire here. The director made it beautiful, and Harry pays for that beauty with his guilt, his eye, and his life. Now, while we're on how the scene was made, let me add something. Because there's a second big myth that pretty much everyone believes. That the church scene was shot in one continuous take. It wasn't. It's an illusion. The film's editor talked about it directly. They shot it in pieces, hiding the cuts behind bodies moving in front of the camera. Sharp turns, tiny transitions. They shot with a specific shutter setting that gives the image that sharp, slightly jerky, almost strobe-like quality. And there's a detail not many know. At each hidden cut, the director would yell, "Freeze!" so the entire background crowd would stay exactly where they were. Picture 100 people standing completely still like statues, so the shot can continue from the same frame. That's how you make a continuous take. And you know what blows me away about this? They almost cut this scene entirely. 3 days before the premiere, the studio was begging Vaughn to remove it. Everyone was nervous about it. And earlier, the first version of the scene ran about 7 minutes. And the guy who wrote the original comic, someone who's been playing violent games his whole life, told Vaughn it was too much, that he couldn't watch it. So Vaughn cut it down to 3 minutes and added the cutaways to Valentine and Eggsy. And here's the paradox. Those cutaways weren't added for beauty. They give you a few seconds to breathe. Without them, 7 straight minutes just break the viewer. So even the pauses in the middle of the carnage are a deliberate technique. Let's move on. The next thing is something I think is genuinely brilliant, even though almost nobody notices it. But first, a word on how Harry came back, because it matters for the full picture. That bullet to the eye didn't kill him. An American organization pulled him out and fixed his brain with some kind of nanotechnology. But he lost his left eye and spent almost a year with complete amnesia, thinking he was a butterfly collector. He didn't remember Eggsy or Kingsman nothing. Eggsy returned his memory in a pretty brutal way through an old trauma involving Harry's dog. So the guy who was the image of an untouchable gentleman comes back with one eye, scrambled memory, and visions of butterflies. Not exactly the icon of beautiful violence anymore, right? And now that thing I mentioned. Remember the mug and umbrella move? In the golden circle, Harry tries to repeat that signature move, and misses. The mug flies wide. Another agent catches him. Harry takes a hit to the face, and someone else has to help him. A lot of people watch that and think it's just an awkward moment. I think it's intentional. I think the director is straight up telling you all of Harry's elegance in the first film it wasn't built in. It was earned. 6 months of training, 3 hours a day. When Harry is broken and not in shape, nothing works. The beauty wasn't in him. It was in the discipline. Take away the discipline, you're left with just a middle-aged guy who misses the mug, which naturally leads to what everything rests on. The music. And there's a detail here that seems almost unbelievable to me. Vaughn didn't choose Freebird for the church scene based on the vibe. He chose it for the length, specifically the length of the guitar solo. He needed a solo that ran long enough to cover the whole scene. He actually considered a different song first, a well-known ballad, but decided the feel was too dark and the solo too short, so he literally went looking for the longest American guitar solos he could find, meaning the scene was built around the music, not the other way around. And the solo builds exactly the way the violence builds. And at the very end, which matters, the song doesn't crash to a final chord. It fades out to quiet notes, so that after the massacre, what's left is silence. And now we've reached where this all started. Harry himself. More specifically, why Colin Firth. And that, I think, is the hidden key to everything. Vaughn cast someone who'd been known for 30 years as Mr. Darcy, the quiet, refined intellectual from period dramas and rom-coms. And Vaughn told him directly, "You're the last person on Earth anyone would expect to kick someone's head in." And that's the whole trick. Every hit Harry lands works specifically because this particular actor is the one throwing it. If some action movie tough guy were fighting, it'd just be a fight. When Mr. Darcy fights, it's a shock. It breaks expectations. And Firth did about 80% of the stunts himself, trained by someone from Jackie Chan's team. That's where this Hong Kong-style choreography comes from, where you can see every full movement instead of the jumpy, fast-cut style of most modern action films. One last thing to make clear, because this fixes a mistake almost everyone makes. A lot of people are convinced Harry takes care of the main villains in the finale himself. I don't know, maybe they watched the film with their eyes closed, but that's not what happens. By the finale, Harry is already dead. Valentine shot him in the eye right outside the church immediately after the massacre. There was even a little exchange. Valentine says something like, "I'll tell you my whole plan now and then come up with some elaborate way to kill you, and you'll escape." Harry says, "Sounds good." Valentine says this isn't that kind of movie, and shoots him in the eye. No beauty. No elegant duel. Just a bullet to the head, plain and sudden. All the villains in the finale are finished by Eggsy, not Harry. So no, Harry does not go out on a heroic, victorious note. He gets killed matter-of-factly, mid-sentence, and now everything fits together. Look at what you get when you put all of this side by side. We remembered Harry Hart as the gentleman who made violence beautiful by choice, and it turns out to be almost the opposite. In the pub, he's beautiful because he's in total control and he doesn't kill anyone there. In the church, he's beautiful because he's completely lost control and that beauty disgusts him. And in the second film, when he's broken, he can't pull anything off. So all that beautiful violence lives in the suit, the camera, the music, and the editing assembled around a man who is suffering. The beauty was Matthew Vaughn's. And Harry Hart pays for it with his guilt, his eye, and his life. And as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly why this scene keeps working years later, and exactly why you want to come back to it now knowing what you're actually watching.